Tarantadong Pinoy parody.
Please subscribe, click the bell, comment, and share. Thank you.
Fight!
Marami ng mga batang Pilipino ang hindi nakilala kung sino si Ninoy Aquino. Marami ang nadadala sa mga kasinungalingan na pinapakalat ng mga Marcos. Si Marcos ay isang diktador at siya ay nagnakaw sa bayan. Kung meron man tayong dapat ayusin sa ating history books, ito ay ang pagbigay ng tamang pagdiin sa naging sakripisyo ni Ninoy Aquino at ng libu-libong mga Pilipino, at kung bakit mahalaga ang mga sakripisyong ito para sa ating mga karapatan, kalayaan, at para sa demokrasya.
Hoy! Stop! Stop! Tumutang lang mo! Hayop ka! Busit ka! Shit! Go! Adik!
Maglo tayo. Bigyan mo ako ng baril. Sige. Walang problema. Ba't ako matatakot?
Napakaraming magnanakaw sa administrasyon ng mga dilawan. And the latest evidence is, of course, Andy Bautista, na nagdideposito ng mga pondo ng PCGG doon sa, Luzon Development Bank of this Limcauco, these old elite names, na kagalang-galang, pero ito pala ang mga ginagawa. And so, it seems to be credible that Marcos had better intentions. And we have evidence here. Of course, later we'll flash it on TV. Doy Laurel's letter to Cory, which Cory refused to entertain. And this letter presented Marcos's desire to return and settle the wealth that he had with him, he brought with him, and for this to be used by the nation, but which Cory refused. Ferdy.
Kasi gusto nila na humingi daw ng patawad ang Marcoses sa mga krimen na ginawa nila. Ang problema, lahat na ng kaso sinampa laban sa Marcoses at ang presidente si Cory Aquino. And we should remember
na si Cory hanggang kay Noynoy.
We should remember, importante yung kay Cory kasi yung panahon ni Cory, very powerful si Cory. Pinalitan niya ang batasan, inabolish niya ang mga Supreme Court justices, lahat hawak niya, lahat ng kaso sinampa nila, kakampi nila ang Amerika, sinampahan ng RICO cases si Marcos at saka si Imelda ron, absuelto sa lahat ng kaso. So bakit naman magsosorry kung walang conviction, di ba? Hindi nga ninyo mapatunayan sa korte yung kasalanan nila tapos magsosorry sila. So, sa makatuwid, walang conviction itong mga ito. Kaya nga, congresswoman ngayon si Imelda dahil walang conviction. Si Amy, governor. Si Bongbong, naging senator pa. At di umano, dinaya pa. Nakatanggap ng napakaraming boto sa sambayan ng Pilipino. Nag-uudyok na ang sambayan ng Pilipino ay naniniwala na walang kasalanan si Marcos. So, ano pang kailangan ditong patunayan? Lahat na ay ginawa nila, panahon ni Cory, panahon ni FBR, kalaban din ng Marcoses, panahon ni GMA, panahon ni Noynoy. So, ano pa? Bakit nagmamakaawa si Presidente Marcos nung nabubuhay pa siya na ibalik ninyo ako sa Pilipinas, diyan ninyo ako idemanda para merong proper jurisdiction? Kasi sa totoo lang, walang jurisdiction ng Amerika dito. Pero takot na takot silang pauwiin sa Pilipinas dahil wala naman talagang, alam nila na hindi naman makukonvict. So pag hindi na-convict, baka makabalik pa sa pwesto. So pinabayaan nilang magkaroon ng mock trial sa Amerika, sinasabi ko mock trial kasi wala naman jurisdiction. Kasi dapat yan, kung saan naganap yung sinasabing krimen, dapat doon lilitisin.
What they did try was the RICO issues,
Racketeering,
no?
Influence, and Corrupt Practices Act.
And again, wala namang nangyari doon.
Wala. Dinismiss ng korte.
Tinataas ni Kaado yung mikropono.
Nandun ako eh.
Oh, sige.
I was press attaché of the Philippine Embassy noon. Kasama namin si Carmen Pedrosa. Carmen Pedrosa was head of the team.
Oo.
And mamaya, yung isang pangalan na babanggitin kay Mark Malloch Brown, kasama namin siya. He was holding the public relations campaign doon sa Amerika ni Cory Aquino. And I was representing the embassy. Rene Sagisag was presenting the legal group. Wala namang kinalabsan eh. In fact, hindi nag-offer ng defense ang First Lady. At si Spence, yung kanilang lawyer, immediately rested the case after just presenting a testimony from George Hamilton. Yun naman testimony ni George Hamilton is just to soften the image of the Marcoses, no? Hindi naman talaga nag-present din ng ebidensya. But nung i-rest nila yung case, nag-rule ng recess for division, umalis ang jury, pagbalik ng jury, 30 minutes. Kaya sabi ko, patay to. Not guilty ito. Kasi pagka ganon, na hindi nahirapan ng jury, ibig sabihin talaga imposible makakuha sila ng a solid consensus. 12 out of 12 ang jury system eh.
Yeah.
Pag isa lang doon, hindi pumayag, not guilty na.
Okay. Let me go back to the one legal issue. Sabi nung ibang nakakausap ko, ano yung Swiss accounts na transfer ng Swiss banks to Singapore saying that that was not a judgment against Marcos?
Saka walang kinalaman sa criminal case yan. Civil case yan. Yun dahil lamang merong hinala na baka Republic of the Philippines
Ang
nga
may-ari
talagang
niyan.
may-ari nito. Kaya pinagbigyan.
And yung pinagbigyan...
Sinoli ito sa Republic of the Philippines.
Sa Philippines, oo.
Sinoli yung pera.
That's right, oo.
Ngayon,
Dahil hindi nila alam kung anong talagang nature noon at that time.
So, in case of doubt, para walang masara na lang yung issue, sinoli sa Pilipinas.
At imbes na sa
Inarrogate
Pilipinas...
naman ng mga human rights na yun daw ang kanilang
Kabayaran.
Kabayaran.
Sa mga...
Pagdating naman dito, pumasok sa Supreme Court.
Pumunta muna sa Singapore ata yun.
Singapore muna.
And then sa
Philippine
PNB.
National Bank.
Then the PNB. PNB in Singapore. Tama ba? I don't recall the details.
Pagpasok dito, PNB, kasi at
Dito,
that time, yung PNB ay government bank pa.
Repository ng gobyerno. So
wala
again,
naman nangyari.
again there was no conviction of any kind there.
And we should point out na yung nag-privilege speech si Senator Enrile dito during the time of Cory Aquino, sinabi niya na ang budget of the Republic of the Philippines from 1965 up to 1985 ay naglalaro lamang sa 465 billion to 488 billion pesos. Not even half a trillion pesos. So sabi ni Enrile, kung totoong yung ganyan kalaki ang ninakaw ni Marcos, sana wala nang sumuweldong pulis, wala nang sumuweldong teacher, wala nang napagawang infrastructure project kasi para makaamas ka ng ganong kalaking nakaw, ay nanakawin mo na lahat ng at kulang pa.
This wealth comes from up to this time.
Ang wealth lamang na talaga napasa kamay ng gobyerno ay yung na-sequester, tsaka yun nga, in other words, they had to use emergency powers to get the money. Because they had revolutionary powers during the time of Cory. At saka itong kanilang isinakdal, namatay. Bago magkaroon ng resolusyon.
Yes,
hindi mo na pwedeng habulin yun. Patay na yung...
Hindi pwedeng managot yung mga anak at mga asawa doon sa alleged crimes nung namatay. Death extinguishes criminal liability.
So, last 2 minutes, so I'm perplexed at the motive. It must be a good motive to return something you do not have to return.
yun na nga sinasabi ko eh. And itong mga taong ito are just, ito nag-o-oppose, nag-o-oppose lamang to save their face at para masabi na lahat ng paninira nila kay Marcos at sa kanyang pamilya all these past 30 years ay totoo. At itong pinapain nila na request for immunity na hindi naman hinihingi ng pamilya ay pag-amin, magiging pag-amin daw ng kanila nagawang krimen. So sinasabi nila nakaw yaman.
Yeah.
Paano?
Okay.
Paano ito nangyari?
Ang mahirap dito, baka meron dyan mga, hindi naman natin sinasabing totoo ito, pero baka meron dyan mga tatrabaho para sa mga foreign countries. Kasi remember, nasa foreign countries yung bulk ng mga kayamanan na ito at ayaw nitong mga foreign countries na ito na ma-repatriate sa Pilipinas, no? At ayaw nilang umunlad ang Pilipinas. Eh baka naman yung mga iba dito ay working for foreign countries dahil ayaw umunlad ang Pilipinas, ano? So sana naman pagbigyan na ito para yung napipintong tax reform program na merong allegation na ililipat yung burden of paying taxes from the rich to the poor, eh hindi na matuluyan at magkaroon na ng another source of income ang government para wala na
Okay.
tayong problema sa taxes.
So let's just flash this facade of the letter of Doy Laurel to Cory Aquino. While I read just a portion of it, which it's too small for the audience to read. Sabi ni Marcos, direct quote ni Doy Laurel, "Please tell Mrs. Aquino to stop sending me her relatives. They are proposing and asking so many things. All I want is to die in my country. I will turn over 90% of all my worldly possessions to our people. I ask only 10% for my family. Just let me die in my own country. I want to be buried beside my mother," sabi ni Marcos daw. Well, that's the story.
I was in the opposition during the time of President Marcos. And without being personal to him, I opposed most of the issues he had, most of the policies that he had. But you know, after his ouster, I told myself that it's very easy to demonize a person. But if you cannot glorify a person, do not just demonize him for personal aggrandizement. For example, nabanggit ko, Kamentong, na ako'y nasa oposisyon noong mga panahon na yon. Nang balaki ni Marcos na magkaroon ng combat team to be sent to, tapos na Korea, na ipadadala sa Vietnam, I stood in the floor and hit away at the truth that we should not involve our country in a war that is not ours. At sa maraming mga miyembro ng Kamara, pito lang ang kumontra doon sa combat team na ipadadala sa Vietnam to go to war side by side with our brother Americans. If you know what I mean.
Brother Americans.
That's what they always
We're
say.
just kidding.
But anyway, I got a call from no less than the president and told me that because of your opposition, we are going to just send a civic action group. Kaya yung combat team ay naging PhilCAG. Ewan ko lang kung naalala pa.
Philippine Civil Action ba?
Philippine Civil Action Group na
PhilCAG.
pinadala sa Vietnam.
Alam mo ba yon, James? Richard? Hindi pa. So matuto tayo kay Senator Velarde.
Noon kasing giyera sa Vietnam, tayo, nakipaglaban tayo sa kaaway ng Amerika. Maski hindi naman talaga natin kaaway.
Pero Senator, we should note there, with your input, Marcos having to play diplomatic politics with the United States, which is still the power in the region then and even to a great extent today. He balanced it with your help. Instead of a combat team, he found an excuse to tell the Americans, look, hanggang civic action group lang kami. Which was good, which earned goodwill for the Philippines. And for you.
That's correct.
Diba?
Kamentong, alam po ninyo, yun si Marcos sinasabi na kung anong gusto niya, siya masusunod. He was very legalistic. At siya po ay nakikinig sa mga tao niya. Kaya, yung
at sa oposisyon, tulad sa yung PhilCAG nga.
Yung mga pinili niyang mga tao nung araw, hanggang ngayon ay naglilingkod pa. Sapagkat yung mga pinili niyang tao, ay may mga matinong pag-iisip. Now, sa peace and order, during his time, and during this time, ang peace and order natin ngayon ay grabe ang nangyayari. Eh kung ikukumpara natin yan sa peace in order nung araw, eh ang peace in order nung araw talagang meron tayong katahimikan. Maybe because of martial law, but we have existing laws that punish crime, and yet the executive department cannot seem to execute existing
Pero
laws.
ang sabi naman nung iba na nakulong o may mga kapatid kamag-anak na nasawi sa labanan ng gobyerno, militar at yung mga dissenting forces and so on, eh pasista daw, malupit, ano. What is your reaction to that? And we'll ask our young member here.
Well, I'm not just about to defend Marcos on that score, but I'll tell you that he, as I said, he was very legalistic. Meron siyang dahilan kung bakit niya lalabanan. Katulad ng paglaban niya sa mga ideologues. Yung nagbomba sa amin sa Plaza Miranda.
Sa amin, kasama ka doon. Paalala lang natin.
Yeah.
You still have a sharpnel sa
May bakal
binti
pa
mo.
ako, kaya iika-ika ako ngayon, Karen. But that's almost 50 years ago, no? Nung tanungin niya ako kung sino daw ang nagpabomba sa amin, eh karamihan sa mga liberal party, sinabi niya si Marcos. Nung pagdating sa akin, sabi ko, I don't think Marcos is stupid because that was a very stupid thing to do.
For
To
Marcos,
bomb-
kung si Marcos.
Yeah.
Kasi it would backlash against him.
That's
di ba?
right. Kaya ako, hindi si Marcos ang nagpabomba.
Just to remind the audience, you were with the Liberal Party. The Plaza Miranda rally was a Liberal Party rally. Marcos was with the Nationalista Party. The Liberals were trying to put up a new candidate against against Marcos. And who were the alternatives? Ninoy, Jerry Rojas.
Jerry Rojas. Silang
Salonga.
dalawa. Yung dalawa.
Oo. Yung dalawa mainly, no?
Si Salonga, medyo tapos na.
Tapos na.
kumandida-
And doon sa
kumandida
rally,
na,
nandun si Jerry, tinamaan din si Jerry. Si
Lahat kami nagkasugat.
Ninoy Aquino,
Wala.
hindi dumating.
Wala siya doon.
Kaya it raises a lot of questions. Let's go to Richard. Richard, what's your reaction to the discussion? And of course, your group now, Anak Bayan, would call Marcos a fascist, and so on. Although you were not always against Marcos. I know your history. You had favorable views, then you had transition, and you were recruited to those who are anti-Marcos and would call Marcos a fascist today. So what caused your transition, and what is your state of mind about these issues now?
Well, sa akin, yung noon, di ba, hindi man ako yung, tawag dito, yung anti, hardcore na anti. Kasi, mostly, mga binabasa ko noon, mga resources sa internet, ganyan. Tapos, tsaka lang nung na-recruit last year, no, na through mga pag-aaral, mga study groups, ayun, may basehan naman din kung bakit tinutulig sa si Marcos. Not necessarily dahil sa pagkatao mismo, no? Pero dahil sa mga yung mga nangyari noon. Maliban na lang yung mga nabanggit kanina. Katulad noon yung siguro kung sa bagay nga yung halimbawa na lang sa peace and order, yung may naitala halos 4,000 murders, pero kung ilalatag mo sa isang time frame, konti pa rin siya kumpara sa mga sumunod sa kanya.
Okay. So, there are many aspects. We have part 2 which will be longer and will dwell more on the other issues. But there is one aspect that we are today saddled with, one problem, one crisis, energy crisis, electricity. And one of the crown jewels of the Marcos administration in terms of energy development was the Bataan Nuclear Power Plant, which was eventually cancelled. I prepared an audio of Marcos's last conversation, I think, with Cory Aquino by phone. Si Marcos nasa Makiki Heights na sa Hawaii. Pero tumawag pa siya to make one appeal. So let's listen to this appeal. I was trying to look for a version na walang music, no? Pero I just got this from the YouTube, so may counting music. But the important thing is yung message ni Marcos. So let's make sure the audio is loud enough, no, para maintindihan ng audience natin. So let's roll that.
kahilingan ko kay Mrs. Corazon Aquino ay pagpatuloy ang Bataan nuclear plant kung maaari. Sapagkat I told her this is the solution in meeting the country's energy demands and decreasing dependence on imported oil. Ngunit ayaw niyang tanggapin ang aking mungkahi at maalala daw ng taong bayan si Marcos habang andyan ang Bataan nuclear plant. Anong klaseng pag-iisip yan? Ayan ay paghihiganti. Huwag natin idamay ang sambayan ng Pilipino. Kanya balang araw makikita ninyo 20 years from now, baksak na ang Pilipinas.
Pero anong reaction niyo doon?
Alam po ninyo, marami akong natatanggap na messages sa akin at sulat sa aking kahapon lamang every Saturday and Sunday.
Anong station yan?
DCBB every Saturday and Sunday
What
at
time?
1:30. 1:30. Marami akong natatanggap na mungkahi na kung pwede daw buksan ang Bataan nuclear plant. Wala akong masagot sapagkat alam kong maraming ayaw diyan at saka ang kasalukuyang administrasyon alam kong ayaw diyan. So wala akong masagot diyan. Pero kung ako tatanungin ninyo, ang nuclear plant ay kailangan na kailangan.
Okay.
Sapagkat kailan mauubos ang langis natin sa ilalim ng lupa, hindi natin alam.
Okay.
Ang nakikinabangan ng langis natin, ibang bansa ang nakikinabang ngayon.
Sundalo kasi ako nun, Rachel. Sabi ko, nung sundalo ako at na-experience ko yung administration ni President Marcos, nung hindi pa siya nagkasakit, that was before 1986, mas mahusay, sa tingin ko, no? Magaling naman ang Commander-in-Chief si President Cory, pero mas magaling si President Marcos dahil pag may mission kami noon, hindi ako nagdududa sa nag-uutos sa akin. No? I never look back para i-check kung yung nag-uutos matino ba? Diba? Tama ba ang ginagawa? Tama ba yung desisyon? Legal ba yung orders? Nung panahon ni President Cory, siyempre bagong upo siya na presidente after the administration of President Marcos, parang may pagdududa na baka hindi ito ang tamang direksyon. So sundalo ako sa parehong administrasyon at yun ang context, Rachel, ng pagsabi kong parang mas mahusay na Commander-in-Chief si President Marcos. Nothing personal. I was just asked kung alin mas mahusay. One word. So sabi ko, President Marcos. One word. So sabi ko, President Marcos. One word. So sabi ko, President Marcos. One word. So sabi ko, President Marcos.
Are members of your family accompanying you, sir?
My wife and my daughter.
Good. How do you feel about being out of the country after so long?
If under other circumstances, I would be very happy. But I don't know.
How's your health?
Well, until March 19, I thought I was a healthy character. But
What happened March?
when I suffered this angina, I've lost weight. I mean, I've lost endurance.
You fainted?
No, I have severe chest pains.
How do you feel
I
right
would
now?
like to thank the President for giving me permission to sit to Trillanes. And also the Supreme Court for allowing me to go, because the President's approval was subject to the concurrence of the Supreme Court. So I wrote the Chief Justice this morning, and I just received the Supreme Court paper approving. In my request to the President, I promised him
why we're here. Para lahat.
You have to be notified.
Particular conditions set by either party for the departure of Senator Aquino?
I'm not aware of any. I think the President allowed him to go for medical reasons and for humanitarian reasons.
Now, his condition, he calls for an operation on the heart, is that it?
According to 3 doctors who examined him at the Philippine Health Center, yes, he needs positively a bypass operation.
How long is this likely to take and how long will he be away?
He calculate between 3 to 4 weeks, God willing, of course.
Has he made a commitment that he'll come back?
Yes, he made a solemn commitment to come back, and I'm sure he will come back.
There was nothing else, no other agreements prior to his departure?
None, as I know of. I feel that the President allowed him to go purely on for compassionate reasons.
Was there any restrictions as far as discussing the Philippine political situation or engaging partisan politics abroad?
I understand that he did impose that upon himself, and I am sure he will respect his own commitment.
Thank you, sir.
Prior to 72, there was some chaos in the Philippines, wasn't there? Or is that a
Yes, there was a chaos in my country in 72, and the students were demonstrating. There were too many guns in the street, and Mr. Marcos used this as an excuse to declare martial law to restore peace and order.
Well, now you ran as the candidacy for the presidency.
No, the presidential election was coming in 73.
73,
yes.
okay.
You see, Mr. Marcos was elected in 65, and under the Philippine Constitution, our president cannot go beyond 8 years, and therefore he had to step out in 1973. Unfortunately, he declared martial law, and the Constitution was suspended, and he's been in power since then.
You were the leader of the opposition. Did you ever run for anything against him?
No, I am only one of the leaders of the opposition,
Okay.
Pat, and there are many leaders in my country. I ran for the Senate, and I was a member of the minority party in the Senate. I was to seek the presidential nomination in 73. However, that was aborted, and we never got to that
so
stage.
you were unable to do what you were
Right,
planning
right.
to do. There's some good things. There's obviously, or at least there seems to be religious freedom in the Philippines.
Oh yes, that is one of the
Which is a very
greatest
good
things. In fact, your program is one of the most popular program in my country. You know, when I was in prison for 7 years and 7 months in solitary confinement, one of the great bonuses I have is this little television that they gave me, and at 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, your program came in strong every day, and Channel 7, which is a small station in Manila, but throws the best signal. It has one of the best programming for day. You have a pre-program on 12 o'clock slot, the student canteen, and then the 3 o'clock 700 club comes in, and that kept me company in my solitary cell.
For 7 and 8, not 7, but for many years.
I think it came in about 76, 77 in Manila.
That's right.
And so I was listening to this, and every time you would have a testimony, I would feel sort of a affiliation to it, because I also felt the same thing about the good Lord.
Why were you imprisoned and put in solitary confinement?
Well, the charge against me was subversion. Mr. Marcos accused me of trying to overthrow the government. Of course, I tried to overthrow him through the ballot, through a legal way. But he charged me with subversion and illegal possession.
Well, that's like the Republicans putting the Democratic contender into prison for trying to overthrow them, and vice versa, each election.
That would be an analogy, yes.
You were trying through the ballot box to win the presidency.
He accused me of trying to talk to all of the subversives in the country. And I told him I was a center of the Republic, and I had to talk to every Filipino, whether they're subversive or not. I mean, I had to interview them, I had to talk to them and find out what's wrong with the country. And he accused me of fraternizing with all of these people.
Well, was it this in court? Did you go to trial?
Yes, he brought me before a military tribunal. I refused to defend myself because I'm a civilian. All the civil courts are open and functioning. And the Supreme Court says that the judicial authority of our country, I mean, the Constitution said all judicial authority is with the Supreme Court. So why should I, a civilian, stand trial before a military tribunal created by Mr. Marcos under his command and under his discretion? So I simply refused. After 5 years of refusal, they decided to sentence me to death by firing squad.
You're here.
Yes, the Supreme Court stopped it, and then in 1980, I suffered a heart attack in prison. And for 40 days, the military doctors were saying that it was a mere muscle spasm. Then on May 5, 1980, I was brought to the Philippine Heart Center, and the civilian doctors at the Heart Center said I was suffering from progressive angina, and I had to undergo a triple bypass. Otherwise, I won't survive. Well, I refused to have my operation in the Philippines, and I insisted that I must be allowed to go to Dallas, Texas. There was a big discussion. Then one day, on May 8th, to be exact, Mrs. Marcos came to my room, and we talked for an hour, and then she said, would you want to go to America? I said, yes, Mrs. Marcos. And said, there's a plane leaving at 6 o'clock, you can leave for America. So I say, praise the Lord, this is the great miracle.
Well, now, wait a minute. You have been arrested for subversion against Marcos.
Yes.
You have been tried by a military court. They want to put you to a firing squad.
Yes.
And now you're in the Philippine Heart Center, which is one of her, or Mrs. Marcos' projects. And we donated some money to it a few years ago, as a matter of fact, here at the 700 Club. And she says, would you like to go? You can leave at 6 o'clock tonight. And that, just like that?
Just like that. So if you don't believe in God, then I tell you, there must be somebody up there.
And so here you are, healthy and vigorous.
Yes,
and
I arrived in Dallas, Texas, and the doctors confirmed all of the diagnoses in the Philippines. They told me, you must go under the knife. And I said, all right, if that's the decision, operate on me. So they opened my chest, and they gave me this triple bypass. Now, some doctors said that I developed this angina when I went on a hunger fast in 1975. I fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, and I lost about 60 pounds. And that apparently started the whole process of my cardiac deterioration.
But you're perfectly healthy now.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, now, are you
so.
going to stay in the United States, or are you going back?
No, I'd like to go back to my country because that's where my people are, and they're suffering, and therefore I must join them.
Tell me about your relationship with the Lord in this solitary thing. Something unusual happened spiritually to you.
Well, you know, I'm a Catholic. I was born a Catholic, and 85% of the Filipino people are Christians, as you know that. But we never really read the Bible as Catholics. I don't know why. And we were instinctively Catholic. We believed in God. But as a young man, I had no time for God. I was too busy with my politics. I was moving on, and I thought I was self-contained. I thought, you know, on my own steam, I can make it. I only went to God when I needed His help, when the votes were coming in, and I'd say, dear Lord, help me. But when the votes are in, I forget the Lord. But when I was placed in deep solitary confinement, nobody to talk to, I became desperate. And here I started to question the fundamentals of my belief. Firstly, is there really a God? I began to doubt that. I said, if there is a God, why should I be here? What have I done? Why are the crooks all out? And so I asked the second question, was there a God when the children were gassed at Auschwitz, at Buchenwald, at Dachau? Where was He? Where is this God? And people are dying in the Sahel. And that was the doubt that assailed my mind. But then I felt there must be a God, because then all of this suffering will be useless. I mean, if I'm suffering like this and there's no God, who will ever reward me? Who will ever pay me back? So there must be a God. So I felt then, maybe it's a fool's consolation, I had to even invent Him if there is no God, because that's the only way you can survive. Without Him, Pat, you'll never make it. And as St. Paul said, I'm strongest when I was weakest. Yes. And I became strongest when I was down there on the floor, in solitary confinement, alone, and it's only when He came to me that I really felt strongest. And therefore now, I have survived all of my vicissitudes because I know that there's this God interceding for us.
I understand that you had Thomas Kempis,
yes,
Imitation
I had
of
the
Christ.
Imitation of Christ, but the book that really encouraged me to go into deeper thinking is Chuck Colson's Born Again.
Oh, yes.
You know, I read this book and I said, oh, this guy is just a phony, you know, it's a gimmick. He was a Nixon man and he wants to use this, you know, to win the good graces of people. And I read this, but the more I read it, and I saw it there, he said, if you sit down with a yellow paper and write down your blessings as against your heartaches and frustrations, you will always know that you're always ahead. But the tragedy with us human beings, we only remember God on the negative way.
Yes.
We know Him when we're suffering. But what about the daily gifts that He gives us? The family, the children, the food, employment. We don't count that. So it was Chuck Colson who opened up my mind to this. And then I saw him in your program. So I started reading. So one day I was flying from Boston to Washington. And here's this man sitting down beside me in the plane. And I looked over and I said, "Excuse me, are you Mr. Colson?" He said, "Yes." "How did you know me?" I said, "I saw you in 700 Club and I read your book. And your book helped me." And we started talking, you see. And it was this man who showed me the way, and I told him, "I must apologize," I said, "because, you know, when I first read your book, I thought you were a phony and you're a gimmick. But now that you're in your prison fellowship, really dedicating yourself to the Lord," I said, "that's the greatest thing." And, you know, I said, "Chuck, I want to make a confession too. God gave me a gift," I said, "a gift to articulate that brought me to the pinnacle of political power. I promised him in prison," I said, "that if and when I regain my freedom, I'd like to use this gift now to witness for him." And look, I'm here, Pat. I mean, a year ago, who would ever believe that I would be sitting down with you? I was watching you. I was in solitary confinement and the death sentence. Now I'm here with you. And this is a miracle. I mean, you know, it's one of those things.
And the suffering did something, though. The suffering opened your understanding of God that you never would have had otherwise.
Well, Pat, suffering can do two ways. It can break you or make you.
All right.
In my particular instance, I welcomed it as an opportunity. With this suffering, I knew that God cared for me. Because if he didn't care for me, he won't make me suffer. But I knew that when he gave me this suffering in solitary confinement, away from my children, they would come in the afternoon and visit me once a week. And when they left, you know, my heart would be broken. But it's only then that I really realized the value of my children. God had to take them away for me to realize that value. So I think the message is, welcome your suffering, because God will never give you a suffering that will break you. It's only a manifestation of his love, I think, that he makes us suffer to really realize him. Because when we are in glory, we don't know him. But when we suffer, we remember him. So I think that's the message.
Magaling kang kupal ka.
Apakayabang niyo pala. Oh.
Ganun po ba?
Mga bobo!
Nunoy, ang Tarantadong Pinoy parody.
Please subscribe, click the bell, comment, and share. Thank